Have you ever, like, felt that you spend your entire life just working to pay for the privilege of staying alive?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
You
it's
know, you wake up, you go to a job you probably don't even love, you earn a paycheck, and then immediately that money just evaporates.
right. It's gone.
Yeah, into rent, groceries, car payments, health insurance, and then you just wake up the next day and do it all over again, just to maintain this, like, baseline of your own existence.
It's the modern human condition,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
We're caught in this relentless cycle of constant maintenance.
Yeah.
And it rarely leaves any room for us to step back and ask what all of this maintenance is actually for. Like, we're just keeping the engine running.
Right, and we're so terrified of the engine stalling that we never actually drive anywhere.
Exactly.
Well, we have a piece of source material today that basically completely dismantles this way of living. It's an essay from April 2024 by an author named Zhu Feng titled, Being Free from Material Constraints, You Become a Celestial Being.
Translated by Kinyu, right?
Yes, exactly. Translated by Kinyu. And what's wild about this text is that it doesn't just offer, self-help platitudes about minimalism.
No, not at all.
It actually presents this fully fleshed out philosophical and even mathematical argument for why our obsession with just surviving is the exact thing that's making us miserable. So for today's deep dive, our mission is to really explore this author's framework about how our relationship to our stuff basically dictates our reality.
It really is a remarkable text because it challenges the very foundation of how we view our daily grind. It reframes all those anxieties and honestly redefines what it actually means to be successful.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how to become free from this grind, or like the author puts it, a celestial being, we first have to clearly define what's holding us down.
Right? You can't pick the lock if you don't have the cages built.
Exactly.
And the author maps out the borders of this cage very explicitly. The text defines 8 specific manifestations of material constraints.
8 of them.
Yeah, 8. They're eating, clothing, shelter, transportation, birth, aging, illness, and death.
Wow, okay. That's essentially the complete package of the human biological and societal experience.
Pretty much.
Like, it covers everything from the cradle to the grave.
It does. And the text points out something that's honestly hard to deny when you really look at it. Most people spend their entire lives toiling and laboring over those 8 things almost exclusively.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. The vast majority of our time on Earth is devoted solely to material pursuits. We worry constantly about what we're going to eat for dinner, what brands we're wearing.
Where we're going to live, what car we drive.
Exactly. And then as we get older, that anxiety just shifts. It moves from acquiring things to fearing the loss of our bodies.
Right. We obsess over the inevitability of aging, illness, and death. It's a relentless treadmill.
It really is.
And the author argues that because we're almost entirely bound by these material concerns, because they completely dominate our waking thoughts, we overlook the true purpose of coming into this world in the first place.
We forget about the actual elevation of life itself.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how the author defines the concept of being bound. This is a crucial distinction.
Oh, yeah. The definition is so key here.
The text states very clearly that the so-called material constraints don't mean that the physical objects themselves are wrapping around our thoughts and actions. The trap isn't the physical reality of a house or a plate of food.
Which is such an important nuance. It's not the object, it's the relationship. It makes me think of the smartphone in your pocket.
Oh, that's a great example.
Right.
Yeah.
Having a smartphone isn't inherently a problem. The phone itself isn't evil. It's literally just a piece of glass and metal. It's a tool.
Right.
But you get the phone for convenience, and then the algorithm hooks you. The moment you start mindlessly scrolling for 6 hours a day, obsessing over every notification, bringing it to the dinner table.
Checking in the middle of the night.
Yes. When you're doing that, that phone effectively owns you. Your consciousness has fallen into its trap. The tool basically became the master.
That's a perfect parallel to the text's argument. The author writes that because we have physical bodies, we obviously need to eat.
Obviously.
Eating is a biological necessity. Earning money to obtain survival resources is necessary. The essay isn't like denying reality. But the text explicitly says that eating is not the purpose of life.
Right. The moment our minds become consumed with thoughts of how to earn money and then how to earn more money and then how to protect that money, we cross a threshold.
We absolutely do.
We go from utilizing money to being bound by it. It becomes the center of our gravity.
Precisely. The text distills this into a very simple, very powerful rule. Whatever we revolve around, we are bound by.
Whatever we revolve around, we are bound by.
Yes. If your thoughts, your intentions, and your daily actions constantly orbit around food, you are bound by food. If your entire mental landscape orbits around acquiring wealth, you're bound by wealth.
So it's a mental trap.
Exactly. It's a trap formed by materialism, not the material itself.
Okay, so if the trap of materialism is a mental state rather than a physical one, that fundamentally changes the escape route. Breaking free doesn't mean moving off the grid to a different planet.
No, not at all.
It means shifting your consciousness into an entirely different realm of existence while still standing right here.
This is exactly where the text introduces its cosmological hierarchy. The author posits that life is bound by what confines it, and therefore, life exists in the specific world that matches those confines.
Right.
And it lays out 4 distinct realms of existence.
Okay, let's go through them. At the base level, we have the material world. The text says this is inhabited by ordinary people whose lives are bound by materialism. This is the treadmill we've been talking about.
Above that is the spiritual world. This realm is inhabited by what the author calls celestial beings, entities whose lives are bound by spirituality rather than material pursuits.
Okay, so that's level 2. Then it scales up even higher, right?
It does. Above the spiritual world is the world of the soul, which is inhabited by supercelestial beings and Buddhas.
And then the very top.
At the very peak of this hierarchy is the holographic world, inhabited by gods and the greatest creator.
It's a vast framework, definitely. But for our purposes today, the critical jump is from that first level to the second. From the material world to the spiritual world.
Right. From ordinary person to celestial being.
Okay, I have to step in here and push back on behalf of anyone listening right now. If I look at this hierarchy and I decide, hey, I'm tired of the treadmill, I want to reach the spiritual world and become a celestial being.
Sure.
Does this mean I have to, sell my car, give away all my savings, wear a burlap sack, and go live in a cave somewhere? Because honestly, that sounds less like freedom and more like just a different, colder kind of misery.
That's such a common reaction. It's
Yeah.
a very natural assumption to make when we hear the word spiritual, but the text explicitly refutes that idea.
Oh, it does.
Yes. Escaping material constraints does not mean rejecting material possessions altogether. The author writes that it absolutely doesn't mean giving up food, housing, clothing, vehicles, medicines, tools, or even money.
Wait, really? I can be a celestial being in the spiritual world and still have a car and money in my bank account.
You can, provided your internal relationship to those things has fundamentally changed. The text defines living in the spiritual world as a state where your thoughts, words, and actions no longer revolve around acquiring more material possessions.
Ah, okay.
Your consciousness orbits something more enduring. To live in the spiritual world, one must possess nothing internally, meaning you no longer toil and labor merely for better material resources. You aren't defining your worth by your net worth.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. The essay doesn't just leave this as some abstract, ancient mysticism. It gives actual modern-day examples of people who are already living in this spiritual world right here on Earth.
Exactly. The author points to artists and scientists as prime examples.
Right.
Think about a true artist or a deeply dedicated scientist. They live within their artistic creations or their scientific explorations. They might need funding. They might need a state-of-the-art lab or a large studio.
But their daily driving force is creation and discovery, not the pursuit of money for the sake of money.
Exactly. The essay also mentions monks and nuns in monasteries, and it brings up a specific group called the Chanyuan Celestials of the Second Home.
Yeah, to give a little context for you listening, Lifechanyuan is essentially an intentional living community that operates on these exact philosophical principles.
Yes.
These individuals still exist in our physical space-time. They still eat. They still need shelter. The text even notes that they also strive to create material wealth.
But, and this is the critical distinction the author makes, this kind of creation is purely a natural behavior. It's an adjunct to life, a byproduct of their existence, not the ultimate goal.
So it's not the main focus.
Right. An artist might paint a masterpiece that sells for millions. The wealth is created, but the artist didn't wake up saying, how do I maximize my profit margins on this canvas today?
Right, they simply lived out their creative purpose, and the material necessities followed naturally. That distinction really flips how you look at ambition. But if people in the spiritual world can still have material things, and might even be creating material wealth, how does their daily practical experience actually differ from someone trapped in the material world?
What do you mean?
Well, from the outside looking in, a wealthy artist and a wealthy hedge fund manager might both be driving luxury cars, right?
That's a great point, and the author provides a highly specific scenario to illustrate this internal difference.
Mm.
And they're very pragmatic about it.
Yeah, they are.
The text openly admits that living in a villa is indeed more comfortable than living in a cramped attic. Driving a luxury car is undeniably more comfortable than driving a bumpy tractor.
Right. The author isn't like gaslighting us into pretending that physical comfort doesn't exist or doesn't matter. They aren't trying to sell us on the idea that sleeping on a rock is actually better for your posture than a mattress.
Exactly.
Mm.
But the essay presents a really sharp thought experiment here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a person who is mentally bound to the material world and put them in a humble, drafty, thatched hut. How do they feel? According to the author, they feel immense pain and anxiety.
And we really have to ask why. Like, why are they in pain? It isn't just because the roof leaks.
No.
As the text explains, it's because society's common values dictate that we should admire those in villas and look down upon those in thatched huts.
Right. The materially bound person is agonizing over how they're perceived by the outside world. They're basically consumed by status anxiety.
Yeah, the text specifically mentions the fear of not being able to find a partner or raise children while living in a thatched hut. Their mind is filled with countless worries and sorrows because they are measuring themselves against a material scoreboard.
Now, let's take a person who lives in the spiritual world, a celestial being, according to this framework. Put them in that exact same thatched hut, same dirt floor, same drafty roof.
Okay.
How do they feel?
Mhm.
The author says they'll have zero worries and zero sorrows.
Wow.
Because their consciousness isn't orbiting societal judgment. They aren't playing the status game. For the spiritual person, the thatched hut is just a shelter from the rain, nothing more.
It doesn't define their worth.
Exactly. It doesn't reflect their value as a human being, so it simply can't inflict psychological pain on them. They just hear the rain on the roof and feel grateful they're dry.
So what does this all mean? Consider the irony here. Because people in the spiritual world aren't crippled by these societal anxieties, they actually often end up enjoying their material reality more than ordinary people, regardless of what they have.
It's a profound paradox. The materially bound person is so obsessed with acquiring wealth that they're constantly stressed. They constantly feel inadequate because someone else always has a bigger villa.
Always. There's always a bigger yacht.
Right. So they're unable to enjoy whatever they do have. The spiritual person simply exists, focuses on their higher purpose, and genuinely enjoys the sunlight hitting the dirt floor of their hut more than the millionaire enjoys the marble floors of their mansion.
The author calls this the secret behind the higher quality of life and taste of celestial beings compared to ordinary people. It isn't that they have better stuff, it's that they have a better capacity to enjoy existence itself because their ego isn't tied to the stuff.
Now, this is usually the point in a philosophical discussion where things stay very abstract and floaty.
Yeah, it can get a bit vague.
But the author does something surprising. They actually provide concrete mathematical data to back up this claim.
I love this part.
They present a real-world case study to prove that spiritual living is practically, tangibly superior to the material grind.
Yes, I love when philosophy has to prove itself with a calculator. The essay uses the Canadian headquarters of Lifechanyuan as its prime example.
Right.
It details the lives of 5 individuals living there in this intentional community, referred to as the Crown of Chanyuan Celestials. And the author lays out their exact financial situation for the year 2023.
Let's walk through those numbers because they paint a very stark picture. In 2023, these 5 individuals had a total combined income of only 100,000 Canadian dollars.
Which means if you divide it up evenly, each person operated on only 20,000 Canadian dollars for the entire year.
Right. The text then compares this to the national average. The average annual income for an individual in Canada is over 43,000 Canadian dollars.
So these 5 individuals are operating on less than half of what the average citizen makes.
Less than half. And the essay asks us a direct question. Are those average Canadians earning their $43,000 plus a year, living comfortably? Or are the residents of Lifechanyuan earning just $20,000, living more freely and contentedly?
It's a great question.
To answer that, the author drills down into the monthly reality of living in a major city like Vancouver. The math gets very tight very quickly.
Oh, so tight. The text points out that if you earn $2,000 a month, which is roughly the $24,000 a year mark, you are barely going to survive, especially if you're renting.
Right.
The author notes that in Vancouver, a basic 1-bedroom apartment costs no less than 1,600 Canadian dollars a month.
It's basic arithmetic. If you bring in $2,000 and your rent is $1,600, you have $400 left for a month's worth of food, transportation, utilities, and everything else.
Just 400 bucks.
The author asks, rhetorically, how can you live? The stress of that mathematical reality is crushing. It is the very definition of being trapped by the material constraints of shelter and eating.
But wait, time out. I have to look at the other side of this math.
Let's do it.
If the 5 Chanyuan Celestials are living on a $20,000 annual income, they're each living on just 1,660 Canadian dollars a month.
Right.
If rent is $1,600 and they make 1,660, that leaves 60 bucks for a month of groceries, transit, power, everything. That's not a psychological shift, that's starvation. How is this physically working? How does the author claim they live very comfortably and freely?
It's a great catch, and it's a crux of how this philosophy translates into reality. The mechanism here isn't magic, it's the structure of the Lifechanyuan community itself.
Okay, explain that.
5 people living individually in Vancouver need 5 one-bedroom apartments. That's $8,000 a month in rent collectively, which obviously breaks them. But by pooling their $100,000 income and living communally, they share the overhead.
Oh.
They share the housing, the food costs, the utilities. They essentially step outside the standard capitalist structure of hyper-individualism.
Ah, okay. That makes complete sense. So the logistics of communal living solve the math problem. But, I mean, a lot of people have roommates and still hates their lives.
Exactly. And that's where the psychology actually matters. The physical mechanism of resource pooling only works seamlessly because of their internal state.
Right.
In a normal roommate situation, there's friction. People argue over who bought the better groceries, who owes what for the electric bill, who gets the bigger bedroom. It's still driven by ego and material accounting.
Yeah, it becomes a transactional nightmare.
But because these individuals operate under the spiritual framework we discussed, where their consciousness doesn't revolve around material acquisition or status, they can live communally without that friction. They've opted out of the material world's rules entirely.
The ordinary Canadian is trying to buy peace of mind and status within the material world's rules and failing even with double the income. Because the rules are rigged to always make you want more.
Yes.
The celestial being basically just changed the rules.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this culminates in a really powerful concluding principle from the author. Unselfishness leads to self, and selflessness leads to fulfillment.
Unselfishness leads to self, and selflessness leads to fulfillment. That's a dense thought. What does that actually look like in practice based on what we've discussed today?
Well, it means that by letting go of this selfish, ego-driven pursuit of personal material accumulation, by becoming selfless regarding the rat race, you actually fulfill your true needs.
Right.
You achieve the exact contentment and comfort that the materially bound person is desperately trying and failing to buy. The celestial beings aren't suffering on their $1,660 a month because their consciousness isn't agonizing over what they don't have.
Because they're fulfilled by what they're creating and experiencing together, their energy goes toward living, not maintaining.
Exactly.
Which brings us beautifully full circle. We started this deep dive talking about that heavy feeling of spending your whole life just working to pay for the privilege of staying alive.
You did.
And today, we explored Zufeng's argument that obsessing over the physical aspects of life, the eating, the rent, the aging, is the exact mechanism that traps us in that miserable cycle.
And we examined how shifting our focus away from material accumulation and toward creation or spiritual goals elevates our consciousness out of the material world.
Right.
We don't have to give up our belongings, but we absolutely have to give up our obsession with them. We basically have to change what our minds orbit.
And we saw, through the Vancouver case study, how letting go of the relentless pursuit of wealth might paradoxically be the absolute secret to actually enjoying your life. It's about realizing that the treadmill only has power over you if you choose to keep running on it. You can step off at any time.
That's beautifully said.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We've covered a lot of profound philosophical ground, and hopefully it's given you a brand new lens through which to view your daily routine.
To close out our discussion today, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. The author states very clearly, whatever we revolve around, we are bound by. So if you were to open up your calendar and your bank statements right now.
Oh, that's a scary thought.
Right. But what is your consciousness orbiting? What does the data say you revolve around? And more importantly, is that a world you actually want to live in?